Imagine having billions in the bank but being banned from playing Monopoly because your family fights too much. The British royals live in a golden cage governed by the most ridiculous, outdated, and flat-out weird rules on Earth. From secret handbag signals to mandatory funeral outfits, we're exposing 50 strange restrictions that prove your daily life is actually total freedom. Forget the fairy tales. This is the bizarre reality of wearing the crown. 1. The most dangerous thing inside the palace isn't a political scandal, it's a game of Monopoly. The royal family is strictly banned from playing the classic board game because Prince Andrew once admitted it gets way too vicious. Apparently, when you actually own half of London in real life, the competition over fake hotels becomes far too personal. Even the Queen realized that having the future king screaming over a go-to-jail card wasn't the image they wanted. 2. If you're a royal, your dinner plate is a legal minefield. They are technically forbidden from eating shellfish, including lobster and shrimp, especially while traveling. The reason is simple. The risk of food poisoning or an allergic reaction is too high when the world is watching. Imagine the global headlines if the king missed a state funeral because of a bad mussel. While some younger royals occasionally break this rule for sushi, the official law remains firm. Would you give up lobster forever just to wear a crown? 3. Traveling as a Windsor is a logistical headache because the top heirs to the throne are not supposed to fly on the same airplane. King Charles and Prince William usually fly on separate jets so that a single tragic crash wouldn't wipe out the entire line of succession. Once Prince George turns 12, he'll likely have to fly separately from his father too. It's a dark, morbid bit of planning that turns every family vacation into a multi-flight nightmare. It's the ultimate don't put all your eggs in one basket strategy. 4. Don't bother looking for garlic at a royal banquet. Queen Elizabeth famously loathed the stuff, and King Charles has kept the ban in place for all official meals. Royals spend their lives meeting world leaders at very close range, and garlic breath is considered a minor diplomatic incident. It's a life of luxury and golden forks, but imagine being legally banned from enjoying a piece of garlic bread. Is the prestige of being a royal worth a life of bland pasta? 5. Every time a royal packs a suitcase, they must include one specific, somber item, an all-black death outfit. This isn't for a surprise Gothic party, it's a non-negotiable rule. They must always have a mourning ensemble ready in case a family member dies while they are away. This ensures they step off the plane looking appropriately sad for the cameras. This became law after 1952 when the Queen was in Kenya and had to wait inside her plane for a black dress to be delivered because she hadn't packed one. 6. If you see a royal in public, don't bother bringing a pen, because you are never getting an autograph. They are legally forbidden from signing scraps of paper or memorabilia for fans to prevent their signatures from being forged or sold for profit. They are the only celebrities on Earth who are required by law to be unsignable. While they can take a selfie, if they're feeling modern, the pen is strictly off-limits. It's a weird mix of being a global superstar and a high-security government asset. 7. King Charles is a major environmentalist, and he actually banned a specific luxury food from all royal residences, foie gras. He finds the production process, which involves force-feeding ducks, to be cruel and unnecessary. While they have servants and golden plates, they aren't allowed to eat one of the most famous delicacies in the world. It's a rare case where a king's personal morals became a strict rule for everyone living in his houses. Would you ban your favorite food if you had the power? 8. One of the most prestigious jobs in the royal household is the poet laureate, but the pay is absolutely ridiculous. Since 1630, the person chosen to write poems for royal events has been partially paid in a butt of Canary wine. Today, that roughly translates to about 600 bottles of sherry. Imagine finishing a high-pressure writing assignment and receiving a giant vat of booze instead of a paycheck. It's probably the most writer-friendly rule in the entire British government. Would you write poetry for the king if your salary was just unlimited wine? 9. When you're dining with the king, you better be a fast eater. Protocol says that once the monarch stops eating and puts down their fork, everyone else at the table must stop too. It doesn't matter if you've only had 2 bites of your expensive steak. If the king is done, your meal is officially over. It's a weirdly stressful way to enjoy a gourmet dinner. Could you handle leaving a 5-star meal half-finished just because your boss decided he was full? 10. The king has a professional, royal piper who acts as a living, breathing alarm clock. Every morning at 9 a.m. sharp, he plays the bagpipes under the king's window for 15 minutes straight. It doesn't matter if the king stayed up late or has a headache. The pipes must scream. It's a centuries-old tradition that sounds like a total nightmare for anyone who isn't a morning person. Could you imagine being woken up by the loudest instrument on Earth every single day? It's definitely more dramatic than an iPhone alarm, but is it worth the lack of a snooze button? 11. If you see a royal woman wearing a tiara, it's not just a fashion choice, it's a status symbol. Tiaras are strictly reserved for married women or brides on their wedding day. This rule exists so everyone in the room knows exactly who is off the market. If a princess is at a gala without a tiara, she's technically single and available. It's the royal version of a wedding ring, but much more expensive. Do you think this is a helpful social cue or just a weird way to label women? 12. You'd think the most powerful people in Britain would have a say in how the country is run, but the royals are strictly forbidden from voting or expressing political opinions. Their job is to remain neutral and represent everyone, regardless of which party is in power. If the king were to tweet his opinion on a new law, it would cause a constitutional crisis. It's a life of luxury, but you lose your basic democratic rights. Would you give up your right to vote for a literal palace? 13. Every royal bride since Queen Victoria has been required to carry a sprig of myrtle in her wedding bouquet. This isn't just a random flower choice. The myrtle must come from a specific bush planted by Victoria herself at Osborne House. It's known as the herb of love, and omitting it is seen as a bad omen for the marriage. It's a touching tradition, but imagine the pressure on the royal florist not to kill a 170-year-old bush. One wrong prune and the entire wedding is technically cursed. 14. When a royal baby is born, the parents don't just pick a name they liked on a baby blog. They are expected to choose from a very limited pool of traditional family names like George, Charlotte, or Arthur. This isn't just about tradition. It's about maintaining the brand and the history of the monarchy. While Harry and Meghan broke this rule with Lilibet and Archie, the core royals stay very safe. Could you handle your parents picking your name based on a relative who lived 300 years ago? 15. You will almost never see a royal woman wearing bright-colored nail polish. Neutral shades, clear coats, or a very specific ballet slipper pink are the only acceptable choices for official duties. Bright reds or trendy neons are considered distracting and unprofessional for a member of the family. It's a very small detail, but it's another reminder that every inch of their appearance, down to their fingernails, is controlled by an invisible handbook of royal decorum. Would you trade your favorite nail color for a lifetime of royal luxury? 16. If you're at a royal dinner and nature calls, you can't just stand up and excuse yourself. There's a specific procedure. You don't announce why you're leaving. You simply say, "Excuse me," and slide out. This rule prevents anyone from having to think about the king's digestive system during a 5-course meal. It keeps things dignified and prevents the conversation from getting awkward. It's all about maintaining the illusion that these people are somehow above regular, messy human bodily functions. 17. While most people open their Christmas presents on the morning of the 25th, the royals do things a bit differently. Following their German heritage, they open all their gifts on Christmas Eve during afternoon tea. They also don't buy each other expensive jewelry. The rule is to buy the cheapest, silliest gag gifts possible. Kate Middleton once gave Prince Harry a grow-your-own-girlfriend kit before he met Meghan. It's nice to know that even billionaires enjoy a good $5 prank gift. 18. If you see Prince Louis in public, he's almost always wearing shorts regardless of the weather. This isn't because he has hot knees. It's a centuries-old tradition among the British upper class. Trousers are considered middle class for young boys, So royal males must wear shorts until they turn 8. At that point, they are finally promoted to long pants. It's a bizarre fashion rule that makes every royal toddler look like they've just stepped out of a storybook from the 1920s. 19. Royals receive thousands of gifts every year, from handmade quilts to live animals, but they aren't actually allowed to keep most of them. Official rules state that any gift received during a public duty belongs to the crown, not the person. They can't sell them, and they can't even use them without the king's permission. Most items end up in a massive storage facility. Imagine getting a beautiful diamond watch and having to hand it over to a government warehouse immediately. Would that drive you crazy? 20. You rarely see King Charles or Prince William holding hands with their wives in public. While there's no official law against it, there is a strong, unspoken rule against public displays of affection. Since they are technically at work during public appearances, they are expected to remain professional. Looking too lovey-dovey is seen as a distraction from their duties. It's a strange, cold way to live your life, essentially acting like co-workers with your own spouse whenever you leave the house. 21. King Charles technically celebrates his birthday twice every single year. His actual birthday is in November, but the big official celebration happens in June with a massive parade called Trooping the Colour. Why the double party? Because British weather is notoriously terrible, and the monarch decided centuries ago that a summer birthday just looks better for the cameras. If you could legally change your birthday to a month with better weather, would you do it? Or is that just a bit too much ego even for a king? 22. There's a strange historical rule that the king technically has legal custody of all his minor grandchildren. This law was created by King George I in the 1700s because he had a terrible relationship with his son and wanted to control his grandkids' education and travel. While it isn't strictly enforced today, the law is still on the books. Imagine your grandfather having more legal rights over your children than you do just because he wears a crown and lives in a palace. It's a family dynamic that would make any therapist's head spin. 23. For royal women, the dress code changes based on the position of the sun. Before 6 p.m., hats or fascinators are the standard for formal events. But once the clock strikes 6, the hats come off and the tiaras come out. Provided you're married, of course. It's like a high-stakes version of Cinderella, but instead of losing a shoe, you're swapping a giant feathered hat for millions of dollars in diamonds. It makes you wonder, who is checking the watch to make sure the hat deadline is met? Is there a tiara alarm? 24. Here is a law from 1324 that is somehow still active. The monarch technically owns all the whales, dolphins, and sturgeons in the waters around the UK. These are officially called royal fish. If you happen to catch a sturgeon off the coast, you are legally required to offer it to the king first. It's a bizarre medieval holdover that makes the king the ultimate owner of the ocean's weirdest creatures. How would you feel if the government could claim your fishing catch in the name of the crown? It's definitely a weird perk. 25. The royal family is expected to accept every gift they receive, no matter how strange or useless it might be. Over the years, they've been gifted everything from a tray of pineapples to live crocodiles and elephants. Of course, the live animals are usually donated to a zoo immediately, but the rule stands: you must accept it with a smile and a thank you. You can't just say, "Thanks, but I don't really have room for a giant wooden carving of myself." It's the ultimate test of polite social skills and poker faces. 26. While every other person on the planet needs a passport to cross a border, King Charles doesn't. Since British passports are technically issued in the name of the monarch, it would be weird for him to give himself permission to travel. He just shows up at the border, and the authorities let him through because he is, well, the king. However, every other member of the family, including Prince William, still needs their own passport. It's the ultimate "I'm with the boss" flex, but only for one person at the very top. 27. Even drinking tea is a choreographed performance in the palace. You must hold the handle with your thumb and index finger while your middle finger supports the bottom. And whatever you do, do not extend your pinky finger. That's considered common and quite rude in royal circles. Also, you must always sip from the exact same spot so the rim doesn't get covered in messy lipstick marks. It's a lot of brain power for a simple cup of Earl Grey. Is this refined elegance or just total madness? Does the tea even taste good anymore? 28. Just like the passport, the king doesn't need a driving license or license plates on his cars. He is the only person in the UK permitted to drive without these documents. The late Queen Elizabeth famously loved driving herself around her estates in a Land Rover well into her 90s, much to the terror of her security detail. It's a small perk of the job, but it's definitely one of the coolest. Imagine never having to worry about a speeding ticket, an expired ID, or a trip to the DMV ever again. That's the real royal dream. 29. If you're at a royal banquet, don't even think about wiping your mouth with the abandon of a hungry teenager. Napkins are folded in half, and when you need to use it, you must wipe your mouth using the inside of the fold. This ensures that no unsightly food stains are ever visible to the other guests or the cameras. It's a tiny detail that most people wouldn't even notice, but in the palace, these tiny details are what separate the royals from the normal people. It's all about maintaining a perfectly clean illusion. 30. If you're invited to Christmas dinner at the King's Sandringham estate, don't expect to leave without stepping on a scale. There is a bizarre tradition dating back to King Edward VII where guests are weighed both before and after their Christmas meal. The goal? To prove that they have been fed well and have gained at least a pound or two of festive weight. It's an incredibly intrusive way to check if your host did a good job. Could you imagine your boss making you weigh yourself after the company holiday party just to see if the catering was adequate? 31. When a royal is finished with their meal, they don't just push the plate away. They use their cutlery to send a silent message to the staff. To signal that you've finished, the knife and fork must be placed parallel to each other, pointing at the 6 o'clock position. If you leave them crossed, the waiter will assume you're just taking a break and won't clear your plate. It's a tiny bit of dinner table choreography that keeps the service moving without a single word being spoken. It's elegant, sure, but also a bit like a high-stakes secret handshake. 32. The British monarch technically owns all the unmarked mute swans on open water in England and Wales. Every year there is an event called swan-upping, where the king's official swan marker counts and checks the health of the birds. While the king doesn't go around eating swan for dinner anymore, it's still a strange legal holdover from the days when swans were a luxury food reserved for the elite. It's good to be the king. You get the palaces, the jewels, and apparently a massive collection of very aggressive white birds. 33. For royal women, bare legs are considered a major fashion crime. Protocol strongly suggests, and the late queen basically demanded, that women wear nude tights or pantyhose whenever they are in public. It doesn't matter if it's a scorching summer day in London or a tour of a tropical island. Those legs must be covered. It's meant to look modest and professional, but it sounds like a sweaty nightmare. It's another example of how the royals must prioritize the look over their own personal comfort. 34. Even the royal dogs live by a strict set of rules. For decades, the late Queen's corgis were treated like royalty themselves, with a menu prepared by a gourmet chef. Their food was served in order of the dog's seniority, and they were never allowed to eat standard dog kibble. They lived a life of silver bowls and fresh rabbit meat. It's probably the only household in the world where the pets have a more sophisticated diet than most humans. Honestly, being a royal corgi might be the best job in the entire monarchy. 35. While most of us have a messy junk drawer, the royals keep their clothes under a high-tech management system. Every outfit a royal wears is meticulously logged in a database to ensure they don't repeat the exact same look too soon, especially when meeting the same people. This helps them avoid who wore it best comparisons and keeps their public image fresh. It's essentially a professional-grade version of a fashion spreadsheet. Imagine having to check a computer database just to make sure you didn't wear that shirt to lunch 3 months ago. 36. If you ever find yourself chatting with the king, remember, you are not allowed to turn your back on him. When the conversation is over, protocol suggests you should take a few steps backward before turning around to walk away. This rule is meant to show ultimate respect, ensuring the monarch is always the focus of the room. It can lead to some pretty awkward maneuvering, especially in a crowded room. Have you ever tried to moonwalk out of a conversation while trying to look dignified? It's a lot harder than it looks. 37. There is a very specific way for royal women to sit that avoids any wardrobe malfunctions while being photographed by paparazzi. It's called the duchess slant. You keep your knees and ankles together and tilt your legs to one side. It creates a modest silhouette and is surprisingly difficult to maintain for hours. It's another example of how every single muscle in a royal's body is managed for the sake of public perception. Could you survive a 3-hour state dinner sitting like a mannequin? It sounds like an absolute core workout. 38. Even the way the royals celebrate birthdays has a law attached to it. For the king's birthday, the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery fires a 41-gun salute in Hyde Park. It's not just a few fireworks in the backyard, it's a literal military operation. If the birthday falls on a Sunday, they wait until Monday to fire the guns because, heaven forbid, they disturb the peace of a royal Sabbath. It's a loud, smoky, and very expensive way to say, "Happy birthday." How would your neighbors react if you brought out a cannon for your big day? 39. Every year, when the king travels to open Parliament, a member of Parliament is technically taken hostage and held at Buckingham Palace. This isn't a crime, it's a centuries-old tradition to ensure the monarch's safe return. Historically, the relationship between the Crown and Parliament was so bloody that the king needed a literal human insurance policy. Today, the hostage just hangs out in a fancy room until the king is safely back home. It's a wild bit of historical theater that makes your everyday office politics look completely sane. 40. There is a very specific rule for how a royal should descend a staircase. Women are taught to keep their chin parallel to the ground and use their hands to feel for the railing without looking down at their feet. The goal is to look effortless and regal, even while navigating steep stone steps in high heels. It's a recipe for a spectacular fall, but somehow they manage to do it perfectly every time. It's just another example of how even the simplest movements are turned into a performance for the public. 41. When a new monarch is crowned, they have an official King's Champion. Historically, this person's job was to ride into the coronation banquet on a horse, throw down a gauntlet, and challenge anyone who doubted the king's right to rule to a fight to the death. Today, the role is mostly ceremonial, but the title still exists. It's a hilarious image of medieval aggression in a modern world. Who wouldn't want a designated bodyguard ready to challenge their haters to a duel during a work promotion ceremony? 42. When the royal family enters a room or joins a procession, they must follow a strict order of precedence. This means they walk in the exact order of who is closest to the throne. King Charles leads the way, followed by Queen Camilla, then William and Catherine, and so on. If you're a minor royal, you're basically walking at the very back of the line for your entire life. It's a constant walking reminder of exactly where you sit in the family power dynamic and a subtle way to keep everyone in their place. 43. Even behind closed doors, family hierarchy is absolute. Even if you're a prince, you still have to bow or curtsy to the king and queen the first time you see them each day. It doesn't matter if you're in your pajamas or at a formal gala. The crown always gets the respect. It's the ultimate way to remind your kids exactly who is in charge of the inheritance. Do you think you could handle bowing to your dad every single morning before you even get your coffee? 44. The king is the only person in the UK who doesn't have a first or last name in the traditional sense. His official signature is just his first name followed by the letter R, which stands for Rex, the Latin word for king. He doesn't need a surname like Windsor because his title is his identity. This means he never has to fill out last name on a boring government form or worry about being confused with someone else. It's the ultimate branding strategy. When you're the king, a single letter is all the identification you'll ever need. 45. Every year, the royal family is required by ancient treaties to pay rent for certain lands in a very strange way. Instead of cash, the crown sometimes receives symbolic items like a single red rose, a pair of white gloves, or even a bucket of snow in the middle of summer. If the tenant can't provide the snow, they have to pay a fine. It's a whimsical, totally impractical way to handle real estate that feels like it belongs in a fairy tale rather than a modern legal system. Imagine paying your landlord in garden flowers and fancy mittens. 46. In a tradition that sounds more like a sewing accident than a government appointment, the king uses a silver needle to prick the names of new local officials. This started because Queen Elizabeth I was busy with her embroidery when she was asked to sign a list of sheriffs, so she just stabbed the names with her bodkin instead. Hundreds of years later, they still use the same needle-stabbing method rather than a normal pen. It's a bizarre way to get a job, being literally poked into office by the monarch. Would you trust a leader who makes life-changing decisions with a sewing needle? 47. There is a secret language involving the monarch's handbag. If the king or queen moves their bag from one arm to the other, it's a silent signal to staff that they are bored and want someone to rescue them from a conversation. If they put their bag on the table during dinner, that means the event needs to end in exactly 5 minutes. It's a genius way to avoid awkward chats without ever being rude. Imagine having a staff so well-trained they can read your purse like a tactical map. 48. If the king ever decides to visit the City of London, the tiny financial district in the heart of the capital, he technically has to stop at the gate. There is an ancient ceremony where he must ask the Lord Mayor for permission to enter. It's a symbolic gesture to show that the city's trade and citizens have their own rights that even the king must respect. Even with all that power, there's still 1 square mile where he has to play nice and ask for an invitation before he can walk through the door. It's a classic move in the game of royal power. 49. There is a bizarre position called the Warden of the Swans, and his job is exactly what it sounds like. Because the king technically owns all unmarked swans in the country, someone has to go out and literally count them. This happens during a week-long event called swan upping, where people in traditional uniforms row down the river, catch the swans, and check their health. It's a high-stakes bird census that has been happening since the 12th century. It's officially one of the weirdest government jobs in existence. Who knew birdwatching was a state priority? Alright, before our final entry, it's time for the final verdict. Our winner for the most absurd rule is officially the monopoly ban. There's something hilarious about a family owning literal empires having to outlaw a board game because they can't stop fighting over fake paper money. It's the ultimate proof that even with all those palaces, royal blood doesn't stop gamer rage. Do you agree with us, or was the death outfit rule even weirder? Let us know in the comments. And now for number 50. 50. The most powerful rule of all is that the king is literally above the law. Under the concept of sovereign immunity, the monarch cannot be prosecuted in a court of law, and they cannot be sued. In theory, the king could walk into a store, take whatever he wanted, and leave without paying, and no police officer could arrest him. While modern monarchs are very careful to follow the law to avoid a revolution, the legal shield is still there. It's the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card that makes every other rule on this list feel like a suggestion. The British monarchy is essentially a high-stakes, golden cage, where every sandwich and signature is governed by centuries of bizarre tradition. It's a life of ultimate luxury, but clearly, it comes at a massive personal cost. Which of these rules convinced you to stay a commoner forever? Could you survive even one day under this kind of scrutiny? Share your verdict in the comments. If you enjoyed this journey into the absurd, hit that like button and subscribe for more unforgettable stories.